Guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about, is a career in medical billing and coding worth it? A veteran's perspective. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys. So, first things first. I am biased. Okay, I am biased because I love this career field. However, I will be straight with you on some things that you may not want to hear. Okay, which leads me to my second thing is, I'm not here to sell the field to you. Whether you decide to go into medical billing and coding or medical billing or not, it is entirely up to you. I am just sharing my experience and what I've learned and what I recommended. So that out of the way, here we go. Would I recommend medical billing and coding? Yes. However, of course, there's a caveat. I will say that this is one of the most difficult career fields you will ever look into. If you are looking to find out, what should I do? Where should I go? I have videos on my channel about, is medical coding right for you? And but here, I just want to talk about the career in general, the health information field, and being a medical coder or being a medical biller or a medical biller and coder, whichever one you end up being, right? Because billing and coding are two different tasks, and most times it's two different people that perform these tasks, and sometimes it is just one person who does that task. So it really all depends on where you are. But when you look at the career field as a whole, it's a lot of work to get into it, and it's a lot of work to learn it. So I always say we have to know what doctors know while never having gone to medical school. There is no truer saying than that. We have to be able to understand complex medical documentation. And everybody talks about the puzzle, solving the puzzle. It is a puzzle. And you're doing this day in and day out. Every single day you are doing this. And it takes a lot of reading, and it takes a lot of study, and it takes a commitment. A commitment to learning, to being a lifelong learner. But if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to be a lifelong learner, and to commit to saying, okay, I don't understand something, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get this, and I'm going to work with this. And if you are humble, if you learn to humble yourself, and there's going to be times when somebody you may not like is correct and you are incorrect. And you have to learn to deal with that. You have to learn to dealing with alpha personalities when you talk to these doctors. But if you work on yourself personally, that's more of a benefit to you, because then you learn how to regulate your emotions. You learn how to regulate your responses to people in a more professional way. So there's a lot of growth that happens with this career field. And for me, myself, thinking back to, where I started from the beginning and to where I am now, just a level of that I've grown, both personally and professionally, is a lot more than I would have ever have expected. When I started this, I didn't think about all the things that it was going to require, like us having to constantly learn. I knew that they were saying that the guidelines were going to update, but I never knew how intricate the body could actually be. And to every single granular detail that I was going to have to know, and that I'm still 15 years later learning that. And so that's the thing that, it was just one of those things that I picked up along the way. But when you are able to commit yourself to learning, and you start exploring, and you're open to making mistakes as far as getting into clinics that are more difficult, or the clinics that people don't want, or maybe you're getting stuck with the difficult charts because people know that you're new, and they're skipping all of the hard charts and leaving them for the new person. And sometimes that's what happens, especially when you work in a work queue. I've always recommended, if you start in your first job as a medical coder, try not to get into a place where you're working from a queue, because if people tend to skip, and if they say, oh no, we don't skip, they do skip. They do. There's ways to do it, and they found those ways, trust me. But if you find yourself getting stuck with all those difficult charts, and you think, why me? Why me? Instead of just running headfirst into, okay, I see how it's going to be. Let me figure this out. Let me start Googling. Let me start going to a coding companion. Let me go to the coding clinic. Let me go to CPT assistant. Learning to do your research and it benefiting you is going to make it to where you're not going to ever be scared to go into something that's considered difficult. And when you do that, when you walk right into the most difficult things that nobody wants, that's going to make it easier for you once you've mastered that. And it's not that long that it'll take you to master it if you start studying it, whatever it is. For me, when I first got to my second position, nobody wanted to code for professional fee. And they asked me, they go like, Blue, can you do this? And I'm like, absolutely. Just tell me what to do and I'll be right there. So, and it was a no-fail situation that I was in. I'd moved away from home and I was several hours away from home. I could not quit. And so that was what I told myself. And if you tell yourself that too, again, that's going to get you in a better place as you learn more in your career. It's the people that want things just handed to them and spoon-fed to them that always are dependent on somebody else. I don't have that dependency. I am not dependent on anybody to do anything for me as far as like with my career and things like that. Do I reach out for help occasionally? Yes, but I'm very particular about who I reach out to help for, right? If I have a question, I always want to ask somebody who I know knows my level of knowledge or greater. And that's the way that I've always been, because you always want to ask somebody who's at your level or higher. You typically want to go for somebody who's higher than you, but asking somebody at your level is okay too, I think, because I think it kind of gives that, okay, working together type vibe, But when you do that, again, it's preparing you more for success because you're able to figure the stuff out. And it's about problem solving, not just looking at the puzzle and figuring the puzzle out, although that is a big part of it. But, that's that's one thing that I got to say about this. The other part is when you question yourself if you're doing the right thing, if you're in the right field, if you're, if you should continue, if you should keep pushing past the 2 years. Like, say for instance, you're thinking, I got my credential and it's been 2 years and I'm in this job and I really don't like it, and I made more money at my last place in my other career, but I hated it and I wanted to do something else different, but I didn't expect it to be this. You don't have to stay where you are. The whole thing is, in the beginning, your first job is not going to be, a lot of times it will not be your forever home. So for some people it is. And, that's just where they end up. But not for everybody. And certainly not for me. I had to go through the temporary agency, and they set me up with a 3-month assignment, which led me to my next assignment that was 8 months. And after that, it's when I got to my forever home. So that it took me 2 tries to get to my forever home. But in the meanwhile, I was learning and I was willing to be open to saying, okay, I'm here. I'm not just going to pigeonhole myself into a entry-level position. Everybody's looking for those entry-level positions, and that's part of that spoon-feeding type deal. You don't have to be, pigeonholed into just entry-level when you first start out. You can apply for anything, even if they're asking for experience. Because when you get certified, it says that you are competent to code for anything. And that would be the one thing that I would tell people, is that not to be afraid to apply anywhere and everywhere. Because when you're in the beginning and everybody wants experience, but how is anybody supposed to get experience if everybody wants experience? They want experience because employers want things and they want it right now. They don't want to have to take the time to train people. And with as fast as a lot of these medical billing and coding programs are, unfortunately, they are pumping out lots of people who are not competent when it comes to doing the research and doing all those other things, even though they passed a certification. And if you feel like, I passed the certification, but I don't know what I'm doing, you have the workbooks there. You can go back through the workbooks. No one has to hold your hand to go through those workbooks, right? And so that's the thing. If you take the time to, get yourself and get yourself settled in and you start working with those workbooks again, you'll start to figure it out. Medical billing and coding can be learned independently. It can. And the books that I recommend are in the description box below. I will not tell the titles anymore because people tell me, well, what are they? They're literally there. Right where you see me talking, there's a little text box, and you click on that for more information, and boom, you'll see all of the books that I recommend, right? Again, part of your research. It's part of the research process. But it's not just coding that you can do. And if you're willing to study and do all your growing through, going through different clinics and different settings of coding, and then you want to move up and you want to be a supervisor or you want to be a leader or an educator, there's always those opportunities. And the more sharper you get yourself, and the more you are able to express, what's going on with medical coding, and you can explain it to people who are not medical coders, and if you can get them to understand, that's a sure sign of success. It's not that you're telling them this is what you do, it's you're explaining to them why. And if people can understand that, that's when you know you're onto something good, right? There's also clinical health data analysts, right? And when you start working with the bean counting part of it all. But for some people, they like that. They like working with data. They like working with, numbers and facts, and this is this and this is this much, and this is what we have here, and this is the growth, and this is the decline, and all of those things. They like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good transition from being a coder to doing that. And going back to education is so key. The industry needs better educators. There are some really great, fantastic educators out there, I'm sure, but there are more terrible educators who are there to collect a check and go home. And unfortunately, it shows because I'm the one who gets the emails from the disgruntled people instead of them going and telling the school, and maybe they have and the school just doesn't listen. But the thing about it is, guys, we can take the reins and educate ourselves. But if we have people who get in the industry and then want to become educators and are good educators who can teach other adults, then this is a good thing, right? And so it's a part of the growth. It's a part of still being in the industry, but still, having your knowledge and, everything that you've learned, and then you could teach it on to somebody else, and that gives you something else different to look at. Sometimes when you go into a different part of health and the health information industry, it'll breathe new life into you. And that's wonderful. I mean, because even for me, when, coding in the clinic setting, right? And then getting to the space where I started to be more hands-on education with my providers, that was fantastic for me. And that was like a breathe. That was breathing new life into me, because I learned that I would get nervous when I was doing presentations, but I learned how to control it. I learned how to regulate my responses, and I learned to slow down my speech, and I learned all of those things. And I learned that it was okay to have fun with, doing education, and education can be more about the conversation rather than here's the PowerPoint and we're going to read this PowerPoint and we're going to do this and I'm going to read this. And I don't read PowerPoint slides to my providers. They read to me, because as I tell them, I already know what I wrote. It's about you reading it to me, because when you're giving a class, and it's something that, I've learned, when you give a class to anybody, whether it's coders or providers, and you're speaking, sometimes your voice can get monotone, not really thinking about it, and then all of a sudden you have people falling asleep. But if you have this interaction thing where you're giving the ball to them and, hey, you guys got to pass this ball around, and you've got to read you've got to read one slide, and the next person reads another slide, next person reads another slide. Okay, now I've got to pay attention because it may be my turn next, and I don't want to be the one who's not paying attention. So I tell them, either I can call on you or you could start. Somebody can start. Somebody always starts. Nobody wants to be called on. And they manage to go right around the room, And so it's a fun thing to see. I love performing education, and I learned that. And that was just like, okay, that's pretty awesome. And there's so many opportunities once you get to a level of education and knowledge. Even though that education and knowledge will never stop growing, you'll never stop amassing that knowledge for anything, whether it is the body or whether it is the guidelines. You're never going to stop taking it in. You're never going to stop growing because of it. So with that, you take that knowledge and you move on to do something else. There are many things I have planned for my future. Now, those things will come out in time, but I have many things planned for my future. And I learned that, and especially since 2020, when I've decided that things had to change. 2020 was a big year for a lot of us, right? But 2020 was a year that I saw that I had to change something. There was going to be something more that I need to do. And so that's what I've been working towards. And my future is going to look different. It's not always going to be the same. It's going to look different, right? But it's okay, because you get to a certain place where you've grown, or where you think you've grown enough, and then you've got to move on and take those skills that you learned and take them to the next challenge. And that's what keeps you going, and that's what keeps you interested. I don't ever want to retire because of it. I don't ever want to retire. And as long as the good Lord lets me work and lets my brain stay sharp, I will be working. I will be having my hand in this. I will be doing something for the industry, and that's just where I am because of what I do, and I enjoy it. I like the fact that being a medical coder first has led me to being a YouTube content creator, being a Patreon content creator, becoming a tutor, becoming a professional coach, becoming a resume writer. All these things that I do that have spawned off because I made the leap to become a YouTube content creator, which led to Patreon, which led to resumes, which led to tutoring, which led to professional coaching, and all of these things. It's keeping the ball moving forward. And not only that, it all spawned off from starting a career in medical coding. And so again, there's a lot of things that you will learn if you allow yourself those falls, if you will allow yourself those things that you're going to meet that challenge. Every single challenge that has been thrown at me, I have met. Every single one thus far, I have met that challenge. And was it difficult? Of course. There was times when I was studying for my CCS and I didn't understand ICD-10 PCS coding at all. And I'm like, why are you so extra? And so there was times when I'm just like, I'm through with this. I don't want to look at this anymore. But I made a commitment to myself, and I'm like, no, I have to get this. This is the mastery of medical coding. I have to get this because I'm on my channel talking to people about this. And I want to be able to say that I have this mastery credential. And because that CCS is the gold standard for a reason. I'm just saying, And so with that, it's like, okay, but I got it. And I met that challenge head on, even though I was, some days I was cursing up a storm, but I still met it, And that's the thing. It takes somebody that's committed to do this kind of career field. And there's a lot of people that are so willing to give up things so easily. Somebody looks at them crooked and they're just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Why are you second guessing yourself because of what one person said or did to you? And then they hear something and then all of a sudden they're questioning everything. Why? It really takes that much to knock you off your path? Really? Because if it's truly your path, you won't let that affect you at all. You will not. It will be just like, okay, that's that person's opinion. Right? I'm just saying, because people are going to have their opinions. And there's a lot of people that talk about medical coding like they know, and they have no idea. They have no idea about our field. And it may be somebody that's a family member. It may be somebody that you know who's also a healthcare worker. But unless those healthcare workers have been actual medical coders and not coders who select from a super bill, because that is not coding, okay? Unless they have done something other than that, then they can speak. But if they have not, and that's all they've done, they can't speak. Can't speak on something you don't know, right? I know this field. I know it needs good people. I know it needs people who are willing to get in there and dig and find out the answers and do the research instead of waiting hand and foot for somebody to hand everything to you. It's not that way. You know, if you truly want to be successful, you're going to have to do the research on your own. You're going to have to do the heavy lifting. And you can't just stand around and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. There's Google. There's Google. There's all the books that are in the description box of all of my videos. There's my whole channel that talks about the credentials, working remotely, what is it like, and all these things, talking to providers. Some of my lowest viewed videos have been how to speak to providers, unfortunately. I think it's important for people to know that, but sometimes people are so preoccupied with, you know, just where do I start? Where do I start? When like the whole thing is right there. The independent study video has literally everything that you need to know in it. And that link is always in the description box. I'm just saying. So with that said, if you want to pursue this, be ready. Be ready. But then also know that there's going to be some of the most incredible moments that you will ever have in your career because of it. There will be the times when you will see the look on a provider's face, a provider who is very stubborn and who never listens to anybody, but they listen to you for some fantastic reason. They listen to you, and all of a sudden they get it. Their documentation improves, and all of a sudden their numbers go up to where they're supposed to be as far as like what is normal, what is regular, what is acceptable. And it's not that they're just like struggling because they don't know, you know, what is it, you know, like, okay, document, you know, you have to document, and document is all about, you know, what happened in that room, because you tell them as their coder, I'm not in the room with you. I don't know. This document has to be able to go in front of a judge at some point if it gets called into court, and be like, okay, what happened here? If I'm looking at a note and it doesn't tell me laterality, it doesn't tell me what's going on with the patient, and you can't tell me that, oh, you just look in the record. No, you can't do that. That note has to be, you know, supported. Everything that you did for that patient, not provider, has to be supported. If you ordered a test, if you ordered a radiology, it needs to be supported. What did you do? You know, and that's the thing. It all comes back to that, and you being willing to be patient enough to take the time to talk to these alpha personalities who will sometimes, you know, lock horns with you and be like, no, I'm not doing it. Okay. You know, but this is the consequence. You know, this patient does not have an appropriate medical document that says what happened to them. You know, and their providers lose out. They leave money on the table because of it, you know. And so that's the thing. But when you see that look, when you see that they finally do get it, and then you see that they respect you for the things and the efforts that you have been doing on their part as their coder, then that's just the most awesome thing. When I see other coders, when I explain something to them and they get it, and then they're able to say to another person, to another coder, hey, I get this. Blue taught me this, and this, and this, and this. And then they get it. And it's just like that, you know, it's just it's the best thing in the world. And that's what keeps me moving forward. And that's what keeps me going. When I see the people comment on my videos and tell me, Blue, I passed my test. Blue, I passed my test. I found my first job, and now I can support my family. That email, I've gotten a couple of those, and that first one made me cry like a little baby, because it was amazing to hear that somebody that heard my words. You know, but it's what you do when you do what you love. And how do you love what you do? You allow yourself to walk with it, good and bad times. That's what you do. I'm just saying. So with that said, best of luck to you all on your journey. If this turns out to be your journey, welcome. If it doesn't, I wish you the best on your search, and I hope you find what you're looking for. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.